Sometimes it isn't just a referral, but it's someone that goes above and beyond to show that they genuinely want to be on this team and not just any other team. Folks that understand what we're doing, the problem we're solving. Chris, our CEO, responds to every single LinkedIn and Insta DM he gets. He'll send me people like, hey, this person's been like engaging with me for a year. Can we talk to him?
I didn't realize how many connections I had until I applied. And then Marlo reached out to me like days later. She was like, oh, we want to talk to you. And I was like, you know me? And then after I got hired, Chris posted it and he sent me some screenshots. And he was like, everybody thought you already worked here. He's like, I don't think I've ever seen like that much hype for a new hire before. I didn't create a YouTube video, but I think mine was, hey, I will literally blow up my entire career just to like get an entry level position. And that was probably the craziest thing I've ever done in my career, which we could probably do a whole podcast episode on.
Yeah. I'll interview you and I'll ask you 100 questions at once and we can talk about your journey too. It'll be perfect.
Love it.
This episode of Inside the Process is powered by Trainual, the one app that organizes who does what and how. Check it out at trainual.com.
Well, what is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Inside the Process, where we sit down with some of the raddest people in business to dig into how they think and operate to help you continuously improve and level up the work that you're doing. Today on Inside the Process, we're sitting down with Sasha Robinson, the head of People Ops at Trainual, known around here as Goth Sasha. We'll let her tell you all about it. But don't let that fool you, because she is the absolute heart of Trainual and our people and culture around here. And this was such a highly requested episode of the podcast. So I am absolutely stoked to dig in with you today.
Well, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
And also, I'm sure you know this, but you're like one of my heroes. So
that's so nice.
just have to share that.
Like no pressure at all. That's at all. Like cool.
But also, I think we should probably give people some context to Goth Sasha, because you're always going out of your way to just make Trainual a fun, safe place for people to show up authentically and joyfully in what they do. I think you're one of the most, if not the most authentic person I've ever met in my life. And it's so cool to just see somebody like that in an executive position. So tell us about your background leading all the way up to dress up days at Trainual.
Oh gosh, like how deep do you want to go on my background? I don't want to bore you.
Give it to us. I think it's cool for people to see.
Okay. Well, I'm excited because Goth Sasha is the ending. So at least you'll listen through knowing that there's something juicy at the end of the story. But I started my career thinking that I was going to work in education policy or public policy and go help bridge the opportunity gap. And I went to DC. I did an internship at the civil rights nonprofit. And I was like, this is not for me. Lawyers and that lifestyle and waiting for grants. I was like, there's something missing. I want to do good in the world, but I feel like there's a different way that I could do it. And I ended up stumbling into a marketing internship actually at a SaaS company in the Bay Area where I grew up. And I quickly realized marketing wasn't for me. Sorry, Mallory. But I was like, I love this environment. We're moving really fast. We're able to ship new features quickly. I'm able to just try things. And if I fail, it's okay. And the VP of HR at this small startup in the Bay took me under his wing and was like, I just lost a sourcer. Come join my team. Help me out. And I feel like the rest is history. I immediately fell in love with the people ops function and was able to join my next startup and lead that people team and that function from 15 employees to 120 employees. I started when I think we had less than 30 customers, less than $1 million in ARR, and we grew to close to 15 in ARR. I saw them through 2 different fundraisers. We acquired a company, and it was this incredible journey. Once they were acquired by a private equity firm, I was like, this is getting a little corporate. I'm an early stage girly. I want to be building things. And I ended up going to a venture studio, and I was the in-house people and recruiting resource, but I also partnered with our product team or our program team. And so I was working with a dozen different companies every year helping them with recruitment and co-founder matching, placing those early engineering or salespeople. I was helping them set up the baseline infrastructure for a people first business. So establishing their core values and setting up benefits that would help them attract the right talent and how to make sure they were building a people first culture. And it was when I was there that I met Chris, and we did a little like, will they, won't they, for 9 months. And he's like, Sasha, just come work at Trainual already. And it's like, no, you don't need me. You have like 6 employees. And he's like, no, you don't understand. Like, I want to build the best business in Phoenix, and then now like the country, the world. I want everyone to love coming to work every day. I want our leaders to be authentic humans and like genuinely support their teams. I want folks to hate the weekend because they love their work so much. And finally, after a couple of pancake breakfasts, some gluten-free donuts, I was like, fine, you know the way to my heart, sugar and carbs. And I joined the team in fall of 2019, the best professional decision that I've ever made. I've absolutely adored working with our CEO, Chris Ronzio, and getting to help support and build the Trainual team from lucky number 15, 15th employee, all the way through today, over 120 employees, which is really incredible. In between, like I've gotten to do consulting for other small SaaS companies or marketplaces. I've got to do a mini business MBA at Tuck, the business school at Dartmouth. I have been a mentor at Techstars and First Round, and I just have immersed myself professionally in all things people ops and operations and growth in the seed to Series C-ish of tech companies. And it's been a really cool ride. And so that brings us to Trainual today. I think we'll dive into like more about what I've done in the job and what I do. But Gotha, or Goth Sasha, was an invention from the brainchild of Chris and I as we were prepping for an annual kickoff, which is this big meeting we do once a year to get folks really excited about what we're building, what we're doing, our culture, our team, to kind of celebrate the wins and talk about the future. And we always talk about our most recent engagement survey. And we have a segment that we've done for years called Hot Topics. And normally it's just a parody of Hot Pockets and Hot Topics. But we decided to take it a step further because Hot Topic is like a goth emo store. Candidly, I never shopped there. I was like the preppiest girl in high school. But it was like, wouldn't it be funny if I showed up as a goth? And so I took it to the absolute extreme. I was wearing black eyeliner, black nail polish. I had a chain around my neck. My hair was in these little pom-poms, like the black lipstick. And so it went from like this normal, like, let's talk about our engagement survey results. And then like, boom, Goth Sasha. So maybe we can circulate some photos, but I came upstairs. I was staying with my parents and I jump scared my mom. She's like, no, take it off. And I was like, sorry, this is who I am now. Don't fight it. So there's Gotha.
I love that. And I feel like I have been at several organizations where, you know, we've come up with these, you know, themes or days, and it's like, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be part of our culture. And not a single leader that like thought of the idea and thought it was going to be great even participated. And thus nobody else participated because it's like not cool, or you don't know like how it'll be received. And am I still going to be deemed as professional if I show up like a goth version of myself, or if I, you know, wear a Halloween costume to work if like none of the leadership team is doing it. And so I think that's incredible that you lead in that way. And I'm curious, like, how you've been able to preserve your authenticity, getting all the way to a C-suite position, and how you feel like that has bled into what is now a very admired culture of Trainual. I mean, people have been dying to hear me do this episode with you. They're always asking questions about our culture and how we make it happen, or like how we've won awards and like what goes into it. I just feel like it's one of those things where people are like, let me behind the curtain. I want to see, I want to know. Do you feel like that starts with you and the other leaders a little bit?
Yes, I wish I could take 100% credit, but I think I'm a part of it, but I think Chris, our CEO, and actually Jonathan, our CMO, are a huge piece of it. They are both incredibly authentic people. They both genuinely want to help the people on our team. They want to engage with them. They want our team to love working here. And I think it was a very, not a welcome change from past environments, but like just an enhancement from past environments where a CEO and a CMO were so willing to participate in everything and lead a lot of the different initiatives. So whether it was like in my first month, Chris hosted a workshop on how to be your best self. And only one teeny part of it was about being your best self at work. Most of it was like how to be the best partner, the best parent. If you want to be an athlete, like improve your fitness, how to be the best version of yourself outside of work, which I think selfishly translates to you being the best version of yourself inside of work. But he's like, I care about you so deeply and genuinely as a person. And it's not just like a fake persona or a facade. Like he genuinely cares about each of his direct reports so deeply. And I think that's given me permission to show up as my full self and care about not just my direct reports, but every single person on the Trainual team really deeply. And I think partnering with Chris is someone who cares so deeply. There's been no pushback on anything that I want to do. Like, hey, I want to make sure that anytime someone loses someone in their life, we're able to send either a meal or flowers and a thoughtful note. And like having budget for that is important to me. He's like, yeah, that's a no-brainer. Of course we're going to do that. Or like, I want to roll out this new benefit because I think it'll help working moms. And he's like, yeah, of course we should do that. Like, hell yeah, let's do it. And so I think the way that he operates and he and Jonathan both operate have given me permission to be authentic. And then his like unwavering support has made it really easy for me to do my job. And he's so hands off in a way that's like, hey, I trust you, do your thing. Like, I love who you are and I want you to bring that to the team. But then he's also involved enough to know, like, here's when I need to step in and like really engage with the broader team.
I think you nailed it. And it's a really good segue into something else that I've been dying to talk to you about. And that's relationship building in general and how that authenticity transpires into those relationships. Because I think you named Chris and Jonathan, but I think like even Jamie and some of our other leaders are the most incredible relationship builders that I've ever come to know in my life. And I've said, if Jamie wasn't my boss, I would scoop her up as a mentor in a heartbeat. I encourage a lot of the ladies of Trainual, which is another community that we have that we can talk about, but I encourage them to mentor with her, just because I think it's one of the most powerful relationships I've ever had in my career. And I think you are who you surround yourself with. And there's even studies out there that you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And we spend a lot of time together at Trainual. And so it was so important for me when I was making the big transition in my own career journey to make sure that I was surrounded by people who were going to make me the best version of myself. And so I would love for you to just talk a little bit about relationship building at Trainual, how your authenticity has bled into how you build those relationships, and also how you raise up other leaders within our organization to be good relationship builders, because it only takes one in the mix to really break what we have at Trainual.
I would say this goes back to probably my childhood. I've always been a very people-focused person. I joke that like I accidentally bathed in too much serotonin. And I think someone told me that actually makes you a serial killer. So I don't think I'm a serial killer. I just think I have a really high level like serotonin and dopamine. And I'm just like really happy a lot of the time. And I love being around people. And so as a kid, I wanted to be around people all the time. And I wanted to do fun things. I wanted to achieve big goals together. And I think that life is too short to not enjoy what you were doing. So I was always cracking jokes and having fun in school, on sports teams, and any of my extracurriculars. And I just carried that right into work. I was like, I spent a lot of my time at work any free time I have outside of work, I'm typically thinking about work. And I want all of that time to be joyful. Like I want to look back and I like genuinely enjoyed the relationships I built, the time I spent doing the things that I like chose to do. And so I think like I'll keep harping on Chris and Jonathan, but they both, it seems like they feel the same way. They're not traditional SaaS founders. They're not like finance bros in their vest and like very buttoned up. Like sometimes they wear the finance vest or like the Nantucket grandpa outfit, but like they are so genuinely like just such down to earth humans, and they care so deeply about like their families, their friends, their community. And when I first talked to Chris about joining the team, he talked about our culture being our biggest differentiator and wanting like the community, and not just the people that work at Trainual, but their spouses and their kids and their families. And many of our events, especially early on when we only had 15 or 30, even 50 employees, we always had spouses or families come. Like most of our holiday events, even like our Halloween or Dia de los Muertos events, like have the kids of our employees, or we want to include this like broader community. And so I think that is a piece of the authenticity and like being yourself, caring more about the people and the people outside of work than who they are inside of work, but also working really hard and caring really deeply about who someone is at work to help them grow and develop and be successful. We've done an incredible job hiring for the broader Trainual team, but especially leaders. I think everyone listening has probably had a leader that made them feel small or didn't empower them or they just didn't connect with. I've had a couple of those, and it was hard to feel like I could be my best self or confident or take on new risks and be innovative because I didn't feel the support of my leader. And so in this position here, I was like, I never want anyone to feel like that. I never want anyone to feel small or like they're not good enough or they can't tackle a big problem, because we have big problems we want to tackle. And so designing our hiring process in a way that allowed us to attract and then like evaluate our leaders in a way that like sussed out some really great people, some really great like strategic people, but they weren't the right fit for what our team needed, was important. And our executive interviews were like, they weighted more heavily on the skill, the strategy. Can they actually get in the weeds and do this job too, in the first couple of steps? But then we also have them get to know our broader team. And we want them to understand like how authentic we want our leaders to be and what the expectations are of a leader. And so being really clear and not overpromising or not painting something as like sunshine and rainbows, like here's what we need of our leaders, here's what the expectations are, here's how we hold you accountable to that, I think was really helpful in making sure we hire the best people. And then like Mallory, you said you're the sum of like the best or the 5 people that you surround yourself with. The early leaders were Jonathan, Chris, myself. Taylor was on the team, our VP of product. He's been here for over 6 years, and then Jamie. And so we just had this group of like incredible leaders from the start. And I would credit most of that to luck, honestly. And then I feel like through their networks and through like those people, we've been able to start like mirroring what we want on the team. And I think authentic, genuine, kind leaders will attract genuine, authentic, kind leaders. And we've had those folks be very, I don't want to say aggressive, but like anytime we were in an interview where they were like, this feels a little weird, I don't like how they talked about that, we would dig into it further. And if there was any red flags, it's like, it's better to miss out on a great candidate because of the potential risk that they are not values aligned, but they're great at their job, than to hire someone who's great at their job, but going to mess up like the beautiful culture that we've created.
I loved this, I guess like hiring headline that we've used in the past, which is like, it's harder to get into Trainual, it's harder to get into Trainual than it is to get into Harvard. And so I've told this story before. And I, have always admired Trainual. I was like a Trainual stan before I worked here. And I said to myself, like, what kind of person do I have to be? What kind of growth do I have to have before I would be willing to put my application in at Trainual. And it was like a self-reflection exercise for me of like, what growth areas do I have before I would feel confident enough to do that? And obviously like felt ready and put my name in the hat. But I do think there's like a special type of person that we are looking for, one that cares deeply about the preservation of the Trainual culture as much as they want to experience it and as much as they want to work there. And it's like, we have a very high performance culture, which is something that I wanted to be part of so bad, just because I thrive in like high performance and challenges and doing things that are different and experimental. But I've had people reach out to me before too, like now that I've been here for a couple of years, and sometimes when I share a win after a fight. For those that don't know, I do martial arts, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I compete. And so sometimes like I'll share my wins and I'll say, you know, thankful to my family that supported me and my friends and God and my Trainual team. And they're like, you're thanking your job? Like, is that a real thing? And I'm like, yeah, like they literally are my biggest fans. I think if y'all were here in Texas, you'd be getting tickets and you'd be front row. Like, I have no doubt. And so I always, when I'm up on the stage, like can hear literally all of my, you know, teammates at Trainual cheering me on in the back of my mind. And I think that's just so powerful. And they, you know, give me the space to take my lunch breaks, to go and train when I need to. And it's just like, we do care genuinely. I think I just wanted to give like an example of somebody who is experiencing the fact that we do genuinely care about both the personal aspects of the people that are on our team, as well as what they do when they are in the office or in their remote offices. And another thing that I wanted to unpack with you is that all of the leaders switch to a leadership career track in Lattice, which I thought was really interesting. So it's not like your career track is pops and Arash's is tech and mine's marketing and Jamie's is marketing. Like, we literally are all on the same leadership track and we're all held to the same growth standards and the same values. And I think that's really interesting. So I actually don't think it's luck. I think it's Chris is attracting people. He is the type of person that attracts people that behave that way. And then you've built it into sort of a foolproof system, in my opinion. So talk to us a little bit about the career track and maybe the standards that you hold the leadership team to.
Yeah, that was an intentional switch a couple years back, as we were scaling. You're probably 70 employees at the time. And I started to feel things breaking, whether it was communication silos or maybe a little finger pointing. It's a lot easier to point the finger when you're not like deeply connected with someone, and you don't have deep trust, which is why we focused on that so heavily across the board. But we were thinking like the leaders are the people that set the tone for what our culture is and the top-down element of culture. And they're the ones that most tangibly impact every employee's experience. Yes, there are other elements of our culture or working at Trainual that are separated from your leader, but it's pretty hard to disentangle the two. And so I wanted to make sure that we were setting up our team for success without like over architecting or being too prescriptive in what we were asking of them. And so we set these career ladders and we have these different competencies that are leveled. And so it goes from a lead to a C-suite, and it stair steps into different expectations. And some are, I like to call them squishy. Some are a little squishy and they're around being like a kind person. It's not the actual competency, like that's like the underpinning of one of them. And then there's another one that's very tactical around decisions that you can make as it pertains to hiring, firing, promotions, and comp increases, or the amount of money you can spend without approval of your department head. And so we wanted to get really clear on our expectations, whether that was with a strategy that you can set without other people's approval or without Chris in the room or with how you showed up with your team. And then when we do our biannual reviews, instead of our leaders being held accountable to their marketing metrics or their people ops metrics, which we review every month and we do quarterly presentations, like we're held accountable to our jobs. Like, don't you worry. But this is an opportunity where I wanted Chris and then our executive team to hold the leaders accountable to being the best possible servant leaders, to showing up consistently across every team and making sure that our employees had a consistent-ish experience regardless of who they reported to and what their role was.
I love that. So harder to get into Trainual than it is to get into Harvard. What do you think your formula is for finding and attracting that sort of top 2% of talent? And by the way, that's why we say harder to get into Trainual than it is to get into Harvard, because we accept less than 2% of the applicants that apply. And I feel like as we've gotten bigger and our brand has gotten bigger and more well-known, I'm sure that percentage is even tighter now than ever before. Why do you think it's so hard to get in, and what are you looking for in a candidate?
To answer this question, I'm going to go back a few years. So when I first joined Trainual, I onboarded us onto our first applicant tracking system. I pushed our first job live, and I was like, I love my job here. Everyone's going to want to work at Trainual. And then I was like, just waiting for someone to apply. Like maybe it didn't go through or maybe something happened. It's like, nope, we had like 3 people apply for the first role that I pushed live. And so I was like, okay, people don't know who we are. So we have to tell our story. We have to be clear on who we are and what type of people would be successful at Trainual and what they can expect once they're here. And I think I'm honest to a fault. And I was like, I never want to sell people. I don't want to feel like I'm trying to convince someone to work here. I want to build something that people are so excited to join and they want to be a part of, that I can be honest about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and they still want to be a part of it because they are uniquely qualified or uniquely interested in what we are building. And so it started us working on our storytelling. And luckily, I have an incredible partner in our CMO, Jonathan, and our VP of Marketing, Jamie. And for the first year or two, when I would reach out to people to work at Trainual, they wouldn't know anything about Trainual, the culture or what we built or the role, but they may have seen some of the funny ads or the really authentic, like light things that Trainual, the like marketing brand, was putting out. And so I feel very lucky because I think I was able to ride on the coattails of our marketing team and this incredible brand that they were building and simultaneously start working on storytelling around who we are. And it was this like trial and error of telling our story. So at first it was in written content and blogs, and we started making videos. We applied for awards and we started winning them. And so once you start winning awards, it's kind of this flywheel. So we started winning more and more awards. Our Glassdoor has almost 100 people that have given us a review, and we are still at a 5 out of 5. And so we start to see all these levers start working in our favor, like showcasing who we are. But then when it got to the hiring process, whether we were reaching out to a candidate or they were applying, I wanted to be really, really clear on who we are and who we are not. So folks could opt out for a plethora of reasons. And then there are like these multiple stages that I can think through. It's like where we felt like we had it. And then we hired this batch of probably 15 people. And at the end of that year, we're having some weird like performance issues. And we realized like we hadn't been evaluating for, as an example, emotional intelligence, their ability to communicate not only verbally, but in writing as well, because we're a hybrid environment. And those folks were falling behind and really struggling to be successful. And I was like, well, I don't know if engineers really need high EQ, right? They don't need to be able to write. And then as we did an audit of the folks on our team that were really successful on our engineering team, they were really talented engineers, but they could also talk to their peers. They were kind in how they gave feedback. They could understand the business strategy. And so I realized that like in adding those requirements to future engineers and all other roles, it was raising the bar and making it significantly harder to hire. But in doing that, we have we've been able to attract a very specific type of high performing, strong communicating, really emotionally intelligent and just like thoughtful, genuine human. And we have that reflected across every single department. And so now, again, like we have 120 incredible humans on our team. And so when we go to open a role now, not only do we get 800 applications for a role, but we also get 20 internal referrals for people who they think are high performing and would be a good fit at Trainual. And I think that we've been able to create that over the last almost 6 years.
So there was a group of us that were actually just talking about this, and we feel like a lot of the people that are top performers at Trainual have actually been referrals. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying in the beginning, that like you hire people who attract more incredible people. And I just think about like the fact that I had connections with y'all before I started, and some of the folks on my team have come from referrals for even like contractors. We have great contractors that we work with who've made referrals in their network. So I think that referral piece is really important as well.
I totally agree. And I would also just add, sometimes it isn't just a referral, but it's someone that goes above and beyond to show that they really genuinely want to be on this team and not just any other team. And there have been a couple of people that like I still think about that have made like YouTube videos and custom presentations in their initial application. Like, hey, I did an audit of XYZ part of your like sales funnel when I went through on the website. And here's how I would do it differently. And here's why I think you should hire me. And I care about Trainual because I'm a process person and I do all of the training at my current company. And I would love to be able to do that at Trainual. And it's folks that understand what we're doing, the problem we're solving, and want to be on the team, whether it's because they know someone, they worked with someone before, or they're a customer, or they've just seen our ads over the years and love what we're building and choose to genuinely connect with someone on our team. And I know that Chris, our CEO, responds to every single LinkedIn and Insta DM he gets of people. They're like, I love your company. I love your team. And so part of it is like, he'll send me people like, hey, this person's been like engaging with me for a year. It's some really thoughtful comments. Like, can we talk to them? And I can think of 4 people that have been hired because of the way that they engaged with us over time.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect representation of my story. And it was almost like I didn't realize how many connections I had until I applied. And then Marlo reached out to me like days later. She was like, oh, we want to talk to you. And I was like, you know me? Like, it was like crazy how many people knew me. And then after I got hired, Chris posted it and he was like, he sent me some screenshots before I had even like officially started my first day. And he was like, everybody thought you already worked here. He's like, I don't think I've ever seen like that much hype for a new hire before. But I think that's so important to like build those relationships beforehand. I didn't create a YouTube video or a presentation, but I think mine was, hey, I will literally blow up my entire career. The last 10 years that I've spent getting to the position that I'm in as a director doing, C-suite level projects and mergers and acquisitions. And I was like, I'll leave it my whole ops life behind just to like get an entry level position. And that was probably the craziest thing I've ever done in my career, which we could probably do a whole podcast episode on, but
yeah. I'll interview you and I'll ask you 100 questions at once and we can talk about your journey too. It'll be perfect.
Love it. What do you think companies get wrong when it comes to hiring? Because I feel like you do so many things right, but people get tripped up on the things that they're maybe getting wrong that are poisoning the well, if you will.
Gosh, I have a lot. I'll just rattle some of them off. So one is I want our hiring process to be a representation of our onboarding process, which should accurately reflect their training and like lifetime with the company. And so when you hop on your first call with someone on my team, it's not a, hello, I'd like to ask you a few questions. It's a warm, kind, like, hi, I'm really excited to get to know you. Like, tell me a little bit about yourself and let me tell you about Trainual. And they choose to connect deeply on a personal level. and this is an aside, but just something I think that's awesome about my team and some folks specifically on my team is going above and beyond for the candidate. And this speaks to the same mentality of like caring about a person first before they are a candidate or an employee. If we don't get to offer everyone that interviews with us, but we can go out of our way to help them. And I know we have written reference letters. We have sent recommendations for them to be hired elsewhere. Someone on my team has done mentoring calls for years after someone interviewed and helped like more junior talent find their roles eventually. And so I think having this mentality in your hiring process of like person first, candidate second has been unique to us, but really helpful because that shows through and everyone feels even like happy to get rejected if they're rejected at the end of the process because it's such a genuine experience. And then we talked about this a little earlier, but not being afraid to say no to great talent. And I think this was something I struggled with earlier in my career. It's like, hey, we need to fill this role. There's someone great. Like, let's just bring him in. I know there might be like some misalignment on values, or maybe they want a different role down the line, but like, let's just have him come in and do this. And we've been pretty strict on saying no to good, but not great, and being comfortable taking a longer time to fill a role to make sure we check all of the boxes with values alignment and the skill alignment. And I think that has served us really well, but it requires a certain level of patience and resourcing to be able to do that. And then we have a competency-based hiring process. So when we scope a role, we have a clear problem that this role is trying to solve. We have the job description created, and then we have competencies for what types of traits or behaviors or skills do we need in this hire for them to be successful. And then we design behavioral-based interview questions for each of those competencies, and those are consistent for every single candidate. So we are evaluating apples to apples and not apples to oranges. So I think it's really easy to hop on a call with someone who's like very gregarious and warm, and you're like, I like them. Like, this is, you know what, we should hire them because like they're good, they're a good time. But if you aren't thoroughly vetting their skills and their abilities to actually do the role, like, you can only have so many personality hires. And like, I fill that role very firmly, and I can't have people encroaching on my personality hire territory. But I think that is important too. Like the competency-based hiring that we've done and scaled across every role in the company.
I feel like we've spent a really fair amount of time talking about the hiring process. And obviously you're not just in the business of hiring, but I think I wanted to spend so much time there because it's arguably the most important thing that you'll do when you're trying to preserve a culture. Like, who you let in is so important, and it only takes one bad apple sometimes to really poison the bunch. But there's a lot of other important things that you do after all of the right people have been hired. And so I want to pivot with the last 15 minutes or so that we have. And I want to talk about some of the things that you do to preserve that culture and nurture that culture on the flip side of that. I know some of it is using surveys, and we're really good about collecting feedback and creating fun environments. What are some of your favorite things that you think we do really well?
Let's go to the onboarding process first. I've stolen a few things from some good cults, like how to get people really excited about being where they're at. But when someone's hired, one, we haven't overpromised and underdelivered. We've been really honest and clear about the role and the culture that they're stepping into, the problems that they may experience. And they start their onboarding process, and we talk to them about everything from expectations around what they might see for performance management and compensation, for benefits, for upward feedback and peer and downward feedback, how they interact with our executive team, the language that we use internally, how to make sure that they are showing up as their best, most authentic self. And so we set the expectation. That's like a big piece of what I believe in, like set expectations early and often. And if you say something, do that thing, like hold yourself accountable to keeping your word, and build trust with your employees at every interaction that you have with them. And so we talk about this in the onboarding process. They understand what we do, and then we do it. And so we have a number of rituals or rhythms that we've built in to the POPs operating system that I think have helped us. Mallory, you alluded to the surveys. We do 2 30-question engagement surveys a year. A lot of times folks have done surveys in the past and they're like, I don't hear anything back. I don't know what was said. I don't know trends. And I think it's a waste of time for people to fill out a survey if they don't hear the results. And so we do it twice a year because we feel like that's a meaningful amount of time apart. And it also allows the POPs team to actually action what we hear. And so our CEO and myself read every single comment. Sometimes that's upward of 800 comments in an engagement survey. We review them, we lump them into themes, we develop a written overview, we take screenshots of different trends, we talk about trends over time. Maybe it's like belief in company strategy or faith in leaders has dipped this quarter. And here's why we think that is based on the comments. Here's what we're doing as a result. And then we talk about that in the next quarterly all hands that we have, or all hands meeting that we do following the engagement survey. And then we send all of the team members this written kind of summarized engagement survey. And so any new hire could log into their Trainual account and see my survey reports from 2020. And they can see all of the things that were wrong, that people didn't like, the things that we've changed over time. But I think that transparency is really important if you're asking for people's time and opinion, to show that like we're actually listening and your opinion matters. So that's a big piece of it. We do performance audits twice per year. And this again goes back to expectations. Everyone has their role and responsibilities clearly documented in the hiring process. So it's clear what they're going to be doing. That is then consistent in their onboarding and role training. And that's consistent throughout their time at Trainual. That is loaded into Trainual. They are held accountable to those things. And then twice a year, they know that they do a self-reflection. Their leader does a downward reflection. And then they talk about it together, about where they are meeting or exceeding expectations in their role, how they could potentially be better? What are growth opportunities? What does their next compensation increase potentially look like? And have really open and honest dialogue around their performance, their growth, and like their long-term career trajectory, not only at Trainual, but beyond Trainual. And I think an important underlying tenet of our performance management is that every leader cares more about you as a person and your career beyond Trainual than just at Trainual. And many of us have conversations around like, how can we help you find your next role? What does your next role actually look like? And how can we position and help you grow to be eligible for a role like that? I think that communication also plays a really important piece of our culture. Slack, we're a hybrid team. And so Slack is our office. We have a beautiful office in Arizona, but not everyone gets to go. And so everything needs to be documented, whether it's in our Trainual account or our Slack account, usually both. And we try to make sure things are communicated internally as if it was an external marketing or a brand play. So normally you want to announce something happened and then you follow up with social clips and you have it documented somewhere else. Like same for us. We want to announce something at an all hands. It's followed up with detailed policy or new process updates in Trainual. We remind people about it in Slack a few times. Leaders talk about it in their one-on-ones. And so this, the communication and the repetition, I think, is really important for whatever we're doing. And then I think the reinforcement of our values, and then we have a set of principles as well, which is an extension of how you should act when your boss isn't in the room, or how you can make decisions when Chris, your boss, isn't in the room.
Front page news,
Front page news. Yeah, exactly. We have some really cool ones. Front page news is maybe my favorite, but we have our values and the behaviors we want you to emulate. But as we hit, I think it was like 40, 50 employees, Chris was like, I can't make every decision. I can't be in every room. I want this incredible team that we've hired to actually be able to make decisions in a way that's aligned with how I or other members of the executive team would make decisions. And so I basically just like took everything out of his brain and all of his like anecdotes and stories and like core operating principles and distilled that down into 20 principles, and one of which is front page news. So if whatever you did, whatever decision you made was on the front page of the New York Times, would you be happy? And there have been a couple of times where I've thought about doing something and then like, whoa, if our entire employee base, like let alone like the entire world found out about this, like, no, that's not good. I'm not doing that. I need to do it a different way. Or another one of my favorites is that helicopter versus airplane decision. There are certain levels of reversibility to a decision. So if you're in a helicopter and you start to take off and you see your luggage is on the ground, you're like, whoops, we need to go back. you just set the helicopter back down and then grab your suitcase and you're off again. It's pretty easy to reverse, not terribly impactful if you need to change course. Whereas if you're on 737, you're taken off at the airport. If you see your luggage back on the tarmac, like you're not going back. Like hopefully someone like that luggage finds its way to you somehow, but maybe not. And that decision is very challenging to reverse. And so giving folks a framework for decision-making has also helped us scale a culture in a way where decisions are made almost through like one mind or one model of decision-making. And I think it's helped prevent splintering in strategy and trade-offs that I think other companies may otherwise see.
So many good nuggets in there. And we've only got a couple minutes left here. I'm curious, what's something maybe weird or surprising that works really well in your approach to people ops? Because I feel like you are weird and quirky in the absolute best ways. Like you are one of the most fun, genuine, outgoing people I know. And I feel like that brings such a different energy to our culture, and just even walking into the office when I do get the chance to go, it just feels like it's a whole different energy. Is there anything that you would share with people on maybe how you bring that to the office and maybe even remotely as well?
Yeah. I mean, this isn't a good answer, but I feel like Chris and I were joking about this. We were just doing our personality assessments, and they're like, oh, it's just like a fact about you, but like could be a strength, could be a weakness. We don't have boundaries. And so it's like, we just want to know about you. Like you come into the office and you're remote and like, it's a hug, whether you like it or not. Like we are hugging, we are excited that you're here. We're like, would you want to go on a walk with us? Do you want to go grab coffee? Like tell us about your life. And so I think some of it is maybe like a personality flaw. But we genuinely want to get to know everyone on our team. We make that very known. I try really intentionally. I know Chris does too. Like when we are at the office and I walk in and it's like, hi, I wave, I smile. I have an office, but I try to come out and like interact with our team, ask follow-up questions of things that they've shared with me. And a lot of it is just like treating your team like humans, genuinely caring about them. And investing in those relationships. And like, it's not just me. I can't brute force my way into making everyone like their job here. But I think because you see the CEO do that and you see me do that, it becomes more normal. And you see that behavior reflected at every level of the organization and at any level of tenure of our employees, which is really cool to see.
So fast forward maybe 10 years, what do you hope people will say about the teams and cultures you've built?
I would hope that they see this like beautiful, like push and pull of a really high performing organization. One that sets clear goals, achieves those goals, is able to set cohesive strategy and admit when they're wrong. And the team is firing on all cylinders with high trust to do it. And also they had the most fun that they've ever had in their career working on teams either that directly reported to me or that I was responsible in some part for helping curate. I think like my personal life mission is like helping people have a little more joy or fun in their life. And like, I'm pretty silly. I'm self-deprecating. It's like, I'm happy to like bring that to you personally or through some of the cultures or teams or like initiatives that I build. And so I hope it's some mix of, wow, that team like crushed it and they were so badass. And I had so much fun and they were so kind. And they were just like some of the most genuine humans that I've ever met.
Oh, I love that. And I love being a part of our team. And I think so much of that comes from our executive team, which is not common. And I think that's really super special. So thanks for being here. Thanks for being who you are.
Oh, thank you. Well, thanks for having me.
As always, document your processes and be a good human. We will catch you next time.